skies clear, wind calm, it was a perfect day for my second flight lesson. Hear all about it, and an update on some of the gear that I set up and brought along for it. It has been a flurry of activity the past 2 weeks. I had my physical for my Class 3 medical. I've got my IACRA application going away. I bought all of my books. I've been studying. I've been working my way through online ground school, and I've got 3 flight lessons, one of which was today, and another 2 tomorrow. My school uses an app for scheduling both your lessons and your rentals, and originally I had 2 flight lessons for this Saturday, but I am off Friday today, and the weather was perfect. I was watching the weather and I saw it was going to be not a cloud in the sky, perfectly calm winds, and I was like, I've got to fly. So I went ahead and scheduled my 3rd lesson, and that was at 8 a.m. this morning. So here is what I brought with me. My headset finally arrived, so I got the David Clark headset bag and the headset, and I've got a pair of sunglasses here. So the bag's separate, but it's basically my flight bag for now because I don't need that much, and less is more because there's not really much room in a plane to store stuff. So inside the main zipper here is where the headset is. There we go. We'll come back to that in a minute. On the front here on the bottom, I've got a small compartment, and I bought the foam covers for the headset. You'll see the headset when I bring it out, which has gel covers that get kind of sticky when it's hot out. This is the bigger compartment, and I keep my sunglasses in there. On the back, there's a perfect pouch for my pilot log. Very important to bring that. And I also have a 6x9 notebook with my pen. It's got graph paper on one side and, kind of standard date time logs at the top. And that's really all I need. That's all I brought today. So if we pull out the headset, these are the David Clark Passive H1013 stereo. They've got the nice flexible boom on it. It's reversible, so you could put it on either side. It's got the gel cups on the ear padding. They are really comfortable, but they do kind of stick to your your head, kind of like a vinyl seat on legs in a car. A nice cushy padding up here on the headset, so it doesn't pull your hair out. You've got independent volume controls on the left and the right earpieces because it's stereo. And then this part gave me some trouble today. So there's an inline stereo mono switch, and I didn't read the instructions, so I thought it would just be a switch, and it's impossible to do with your finger. You need something sharp and pointy to reach in there and then toggle it off. So I could only hear in my left ear today, which was a bit of a pain, but that'll be solved for tomorrow. So that's it. These are nice and light, which is good. They're much lighter than they look. And I mentioned, I wanted passive because A, the battery can't go dead on them, and B, it's good to hear the engine a little bit because you want to hear the engine when you're doing your training so you can know how it sounds, if it's running rough or not running rough, or, when you add throttle. So put everything back in here, and that's it. Handy handle. I just show up with it, kind of like my lunchbox, carry it onto the plane with me. After I empty everything out, toss it in the back seat. Now these are an indulgence. They're actually a birthday present from my wife when I started taking flight lessons. So these are Randolph's. I'd been meaning to get new sunglasses, and I got flight sunglasses. So what's nice about these is they have bayonet handles, so you can slide them behind your headset without them hooking over your ears. They're also non-polarized, which means if you're looking at electronic instruments, it's not going to interfere with them. These are the best sunglasses I've ever had. I actually wear them when driving now because they are so clear and have such great contrast. I was flying in a different plane this time than last time. My other plane was being rented by another student. So this one was the blue and white Skyhawk. And even though they're all Skyhawk M's at the flight school, they're all a little bit different. So the panel was a bit different, and it took a little bit of getting used to figure out where things had moved around on the panel. This was the third time now that I've been through the pre-flight and the walk-around, and I'm feeling much more comfortable with it. So, I was doing it all. We went through a lot of detail in the groundwork last week, so that helped. And then once we got situated, we needed to taxi out. So I was wondering, I've been practicing with my rudder pedals in Microsoft Flight Simulator to hopefully do a little bit better this time. On my Discovery flight, I was like a drunk driver with taxiing. I was just all over the place. And I was like, I hope it pays off. And it did. I can't tell if it was the practicing with Microsoft Flight Simulator or just, I'd started to get the hang of it after the first lesson. But taxiing went really well this time. I was on the yellow line the entire way, was able to turn around, 180 degrees where we had to do tight turns. We had a back taxi on the runway to get to the other end because of the direction of the winds, and I had to do a full 180, in the turnaround area there, and I had no trouble with it. I was able to taxi and I was able to use the differential brakes. The only thing that I think needs some more work on is braking itself. Just like in the simulator, I have trouble evenly stepping with my right foot and my left foot at the same time on both brakes. So when I try to fully brake, the Cessna will end up veering left or right a bit because I'm unevenly braking. I'll get it. So today was all about turns. We went to the practice area, and in the brief we said we're going to turn. We're going to practice straight and level flight. We're going to practice level turns. Then we're going to do climbing turns. Then we're going to do descending turns, and every flavor of those. In addition to that, we're going to work on coordinated turns, and we had one part of the flight where we intentionally did a turn just with ailerons, and then we did a turn just with rudders, so you could feel how the nose would kick to the side with an aileron turn, and the tail would kick to the side with a rudder turn, and then we did the coordinated turns, and that was not as hard as I thought it would be. That was intuitive, I think. My instructor commented again with positive feedback that he thought that I was really smooth with making turns, and that a lot of times students start being very jerky on the controls. And I honestly think that's from flight simming. I've commented before that the one thing that translates really well between flight simming and how the plane handles in real life, I think, is turns. Turns feel like they do in the sim, in particular if you fly in VR. So if you're used to smoothly rolling into a turn and smoothly rolling out of a turn in the sim in VR, I think that maps pretty nicely into how the aircraft handles. Because the winds were coming from the opposite direction of my Discovery flight, we had a different pattern entry, so I got to fly us back to the field. You could see the field from the practice area when you're at altitude, so you just point towards it and fly towards it, and then we ended up, there's a river crossing the river, entering the downwind on the 45. I was doing all that, flew the pattern, and did, I think, much better on the landing approach. He gave me a lot more coaching this time, so it's not really, I think that I did much better. It's that it was very, precise. Okay, bring power out here and, get your nose down here. So we had a really good, I think, approach angle and speed, and he ended up doing the landing, but I don't think it was because the landing wasn't going well. He intended to do the landing, to do the final part of the landing, so I brought it almost, up to the numbers, and then he said he was going to take the controls and do the flare and actually set us down, and he wanted me to have my hands on the controls while he was talking through everything he was doing. And then I taxied back, and again, the taxiing went really well. So I felt really good coming out of this lesson. I felt like I understood everything that was going on, and I was able to handle the plane better than I was in my first flight. I was able to taxi the plane a lot better than I was in my Discovery flight, and it's just been one flight, so that was a cool feeling. I'm definitely looking forward to when I get to try to land, so I'm sure in the next couple lessons that'll come up, but it was just awesome. It was such a perfect day this morning. I mean, perfectly clear blue skies, no wind. And there were a couple times during the flight that I just got a little distracted as we're doing turns. When I reminded myself to just check out the scenery, because you get really focused, looking out the window and maintaining your sight picture and trying to do your turn correctly, that it's nice just to take a second and kind of glance down. And the practice area is over a reservoir, and early in the morning with the sunlight just hitting the water just right, the whole thing's golden. I mean, it just looked great. And I remember saying to him, that looks amazing. And he's like, yeah, cool. Okay, so back to the turns. Lastly, I'll tell you a little bit about my physical for my Class 3 medical. So you need that before you solo. You don't need it for flight lessons, but you can't solo without it. So I scheduled it. It needs to be with an aviation medical examiner. The FAA can tell you who or your flight school. And so I show up at this location for my physical, and when I come in, there's nobody there. There's nobody in the waiting room. There's nobody at the reception area. So I walk up to the reception area, and I look down, and staring up at me is a dog. The dog's just looking at me, and I look down at the dog, and I say, hi, I have a 4:30 appointment. I didn't have anything else to say. The dog just stares at me. So I wait patiently, and after a few minutes, somebody comes and greets me. So the good news about it is the physical part of the physical is totally straightforward. It's the same thing that happens to you every year when you go to see your family doctor. He hits you on the knee with the little rubber triangle to check your reflexes. He pushes on your stomach, feels your neck, listens to your heart, has you take a couple deep breaths, that type of stuff. It's nothing unusual. There's a vision test, read the letters to the smallest line. There's a color blindness test. Read the numbers that are in the little colored circle charts. And that part was easy. It's straightforward. I'm in good health. I didn't have any issues. But what we spent the most time on was my medical history, because you end up disclosing everything that's ever happened to you in your life on the form that you fill out, along with all the medications you take and, all the doctors you've seen in the past 3 years. So we end up going through all of this, and there are FAA flowcharts for every one of these. If you are taking this medication and it is daily versus if you are taking this medication and it is, as needed. I don't know. I'm kind of making that up, but that's kind of what the flowcharts are like. So we had to walk through those for a bunch of my stuff. So there were some follow-ups coming out of it. I had to get some more information from my doctors to sign off on some stuff, which was, I guess, a little bit of a bummer. I was hoping to walk out with my medical certificate. Instead, I walked out with some homework, which I did the next day and gave it back to him. So that's still pending. Hopefully that will go through without any issues. In terms of ground school, I'm about 2/3 of the way through the King's online courses, and it is overlapping the groundwork that my instructor's teaching me and giving me homework for. I will say that the King's courses are like drinking through a fire hose, and as I've gone through them, I can tell that they're really designed as test prep. So they are designed to give you the answers that you will need for the test. So at times I've felt like, I'd like to I'd like to ask questions. I would like to understand the concept as just memorize something. But the good news is that now that my instructor has given me homework and I'm reading through the very detailed book. Remember, I showed you those books in the last video for the private pilot guide. That explains everything, and it really helped already having been exposed to the online ground school version of the concept to then do a deep dive for the concept. And I'm going to talk out with my instructor because we have groundwork too. So that kind of got rid of my worries of, am I just going to have to memorize all this stuff, or am I going to get taught this stuff? And yeah, you're going to get taught it multiple ways, and it's going to stick. So there you go, lesson number 2 complete. It's actually my 3rd time at the flight school, and I am as excited as ever. I think probably the first couple weeks, I don't know if they'll be the hardest in terms of difficulty, but mentally they're difficult because you're assimilating so much new stuff. You've got homework, you've got books, you've got all this legwork with the medical stuff, you're trying to get your lessons in, and you're just trying to process it all. So I think that it will be nice when that calms down a little and I become a little more acclimated to knowing what I'm doing. And I have this sort of alternating high and low experience for this. It's not too low, but the low experience is, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot of work. This is a big commitment. Did I bite off more than I can chew? So you have these moments of self-doubt. And then I go to the flight school and I take a lesson and I come back and I'm like, I am Superman. That's how you feel after you do a lesson. You're like, that was so awesome. How could I have doubted that? So it's this little roller coaster ride of emotions, of self-doubt, and then you build a little more confidence when you take a lesson. It's just good to stick with it. I don't know what else to say there. I'll be very honest with you and tell you how I'm feeling as I give these updates. So that is it. I will keep giving you updates as I go through this process, whether it'll be these little clips by themselves or updates in some of my flight sim videos. So thanks for following along on my personal journey to get my private pilot license. If you are on a similar journey, I'd love to hear from you. Leave something in the comments. I'd like to hear, how you're tackling it and how you were feeling the first time you went to the flight school. So thanks as always for listening to me, and stay tuned for further flight adventures.